Silver and gold. Lver and gold. I've got two pens that are vaguely similar. One is silver and one is gold. One is thin, one is slightly less thin. Both are mine. They're my pens. They look sort of wall-like, and this one might be, in fact, wall. I don't know. I used to know things, and now I don't, which is fine. All in all, I don't need to. We're doomed. World War III is starting, and anyway, blah, blah, blah. So what is it about these two pens? Why do I like them so much? These are pens that were in my for sale bin, and of course I bought them because I give myself a healthy discount. My healthy discount is I don't pay my electric bill. Instead, I just keep a pen. It's crazy, I know, but that's what I do. So, I don't know what I even want to say here. Do I like gold? I prefer silver. I love silver pens. But sometimes gold is kind of flashy and fun. Silver is much nicer, though, I think. I like the way silver tarnishes. Yeah, I think both of these were in my repair drawer because I think they both needed pressure bars or something. So I didn't have them out on my for sale table at the last pen show. But if I were to have had them out at my last pen show, I probably would have tried them out and put them in my pocket even then. Anyway, at some point they'll be for sale, just not yet. This one has a little bit of an issue, which, I mean, we all have issues, all of us. Every single one of us has issues. This one, it's not quite straight. This hard rubber part that comes out of the silver part of the barrel is a little crooked. And I don't know why that is, but it is. So other pens of this ilk, other walls that I have that I will probably fix and probably sell, might include these. Why are these here? I think these all need pressure bars. That needs a pressure bar. This one needs a pressure bar or something. Oh, a feed. Needs a feed. This needs maybe a pressure bar. And this is a nib that only a mother can love. It's very stiff. Oops. Actually, no, it's surprisingly not, well, it's stiff, but it's really it makes me want to be angry. Dear President Putin, just take your shirt off and become a porn star. Would that work? Would I find myself in the gulag? What does this one do? Other than drop ink. These don't have sacks in them, so when I dip them in the water, I'm dipping them in dirty water. You can see how dirty my water is. There's probably ink left over in the feed anyway. This one, not a bad pen here either. This is the dart motif, and I really like this motif a lot. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's kind of neat. This has had a nice set of pliers grabbing onto the section to yank it out of the barrel, and that sometimes bothers me and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, it bothers me a little regardless, but sometimes I see it and I'm not bothered by it. For some reason, I'm not bothered by it here. Would I prefer it to be smooth? Yes, probably. But it doesn't have to be. Okay, ECH. What kind of nib does this have? Oh dear. Well, as you know, I don't know, this should be on my tombstone. They're all different. Each one of these pens has a different feel. Unfortunately, some of these pens have these little lines here. And what that means is somewhere down the line, the whole top of the cap is going to come off because the moisture or the ink or something that usually sits right up here ate away at the inside of the metal. So when you're buying a Wahl Eversharp all metal pen like this, you should check the top of the cap here like this one you can see is also having that problem where it's corroding and at some point it will just come apart into two pieces. That bothers me. There's another one in here. Okay, this is a diamond point pen or diamond metal, diamond point, and has this sort of checkerboard pattern on it, which is a little different than some. Has a hard rubber section all the way through it. Hard rubber barrel coming out of it. I mean, a barrel going all the way through it. Sorry. Well, I'm just dribbling ink everywhere, aren't I? They're perfectly lovely little things, and a number 2 sized nib does 90% of what you'd ever want a nib to do. You know, you might find a number 5 just because it's a bigger nib, or a 6 or 8 or something, that because of its longer tines might have more flexibility possible in it, but I've never really seen any that do that. The number 2 does a pretty darn good job of giving you a full flex. What does this need? Does this need a pressure bar? No. This is like the little brother, the little sister, big sister, little sister. This is a number 0 nib. It'll be kind of hard for me to find a feed for that one. Sometimes, I know that I'm a poster most of the time, but every once in a while, when I take off the cap and before I put it on and it's in my hand, and if I'm able to sort of conceal the pen like this in my hand, I sometimes think, well, that's kind of a neat way to write. It's almost like your fingernail is an ink supply. It's an interesting feeling. It also, because it's concealed in your hand like this, the pen is at a different angle. So, tomorrow, I think, if this goes as planned, my guest will be Alicia from Adventure Denali. I've been wanting to chat with her for a long time, and she said something on her channel that made me think we were cut from the same cloth. She talked about a Swan pen that she had, a Maybe Todd Swan, and most of us would say, oh, it's too scratchy, I don't like it, or something. But she didn't say that. She said that the Swan and she are having a little difficulty in their relationship. And I think she was willing to, it implied anyway, that statement implied that if they both give and take a little bit, though in this case, of course, it's more the human than the pen learning a new trick, then they would get along fine. And I think that was really neat, because I do the same thing. I pick a pen up or get a pen on eBay, and it comes, and I immediately say, I don't like this nib. And I know that isn't the right answer. The nib, unless it's broken, the nib was made by intelligent craftspeople and sold to an intelligent buyer. And that intelligent buyer could have bought any pen that was in the shop, but they chose that one with that nib. And they love that nib. Now I'm trying to figure out why it is that someone would like a nib like that. And that might have been part of it, is just learning to appreciate the nib on Alicia's part. It might be the weight of the pen was different than her usual pens. It might have been some other issue. Maybe the color green that the pen was in, or whatever color it was, she didn't like very much, or something. I don't know what it was that was causing the problem, but she implied that the problem lay with her not understanding it enough yet. And if she took the time and went out on a second date with the pen, maybe they'd hit it off. And also maybe it was just you expect something and it wasn't there. And it reminds me of this. I would go to dinner at this restaurant near me, and it must have been a popular place for people to go on their first date from Planet Romeo or whatever those stupid Cupid apps are. And I would hear people, talking. They looked like they knew each other, but they were asking questions like, do you have any siblings, or where do you like to vacation, or things like that. So it's clear that they didn't know each other very well. And I was watching listening and watching to this very lovely conversation, and it was between this woman, boobs, and this man, pecs. Boobs, pecs. See, pecs are square, boobs are round. And they're talking. And I drew him a little shorter because he is short. And I think that, when he would stand up to meet people, that might be a turnoff for some people, is the height of this guy. But I'd seen him a couple of times before, so I sort of knew him. And anyway, his date might have, quote, sized him up and decided that short wasn't right for her or something like that, but maybe not. I don't know. I wasn't there at the beginning of the conversation, but he said everything anyone would ever want to hear on a date. He was interested in what she said. They talked about many different things, but every single thing that he said, I like Stephen King novels. And she would say, oh, I have 6 autographed first editions, belittling him. Or I like classical music. Oh, I have a subscription to the Boston Symphony Orchestra, or whatever. Everything she said was like a trump card against this guy. And it was clear, it was clear to me that this was not going anywhere. They each had a glass of beer, and they weren't drinking them. They were just letting them evaporate. And they were probably counting down the minutes until they could finally leave. Well, at some point, the gentleman, who was a real gentleman, said, well, this is very nice meeting you. I think it's probably, I have to get up early for work tomorrow, or whatever it was, however you say goodbye on a first date. And she said, yeah, I suppose that's true. And they still had beer to drink, but, clearly they weren't going to, there wasn't going to be a date number 2. But so then they started talking about just the speed date, the dating app that they have, and then they drank their beer, and they actually had a conversation when they weren't playing the game, they had the conversation. And I've never seen him since. So maybe they got married and they've got 20 kids by now. Well, she'd have to have had 2 groups of 10 in the time that since this happened. But anyway, it was only a few years ago. But the point is of this story, you know, each of these people had an expectation of what they wanted and what they thought. You know, this guy, before he even picked her on the app, he knows he wants a dame that has autographed books of Stephen King or whatever it is he's turned on by. And she has, I want someone that's tall, dark, and handsome, or whatever it is she has. And then when they meet, then they have to reassess all of their ideals against the reality that's in front of them. But rarely do they get to the, you know, if their expectations are greater than the reality, then of course they can't live up to it. And expectations are always greater, and they're also idealized. That, you know, these things aren't. No one is perfect. No pen is perfect. There's always going to be some element of the pen, I think, that isn't quite right. You know, you take the most perfect pen that you own and say, "Gee, I wish this was a blue one instead of a green one," or "I wish it had a slightly stubbier nib," or "I wish it had blah blah blah." But here's my advice to you people out there: I wish this was silver, because I don't like gold. But there's something about this gold I'm writing with this one more than this one, because it sort of sparkles more, and I kind of, it's not even 5 in the morning, I don't think. I sort of like it's 5:30, 5:21. I sort of like the gold sunlight sparkling in my eyeballs here. So, but if you take the pen that you've got, if Alicia were to take the Swan pen and pretend that she chose that one at the pen shop when it was brand new, and she could have had any pen she wanted. And why would she have chosen that one? Okay, she'd say, okay, well, because the nib is really strong and inflexible. Well, then do something with that kind of a nib. What kind of thing would that person write? Why did that person need a strong, inflexible nib? And I've learned to really like the variety of the nib, and if I can get if I try where's a strong and flexible nib. This is about as strong and inflexible a nib as you can find. And why would I want this? Why would I want this kind of a nib rather than the one I was just using? And I might, for certain kinds of drawings, I might prefer this kind of a nib. If I had really thick, bumpy watercolor paper and I wanted to put line work down, this might be the pen for it. What does this pen do? What kind of nib does this have? This is another stiff nib. Oh. Listen to the noise that one makes. It's growling. This is what glaciers sound like. Down at the bottom where they're scraping the the Andes Mountains or whatever, the Alps. The granite at the bottom of the glacier sounds like that. Maybe that's what you need. I mean, this would be a pen that would be perfect to rent out to a movie. So when someone signs their letter, you can hear it in the back row. So they don't have to have the sound effects man come out. I keep grabbing this one. This one was just as far away, the silver one that I love. I love silver. But I keep grabbing this gold one. This is slightly fatter. And there's something, it also feels a little bit, yeah, this is lighter. The gold one is lighter than the silver one. I don't know, there's just something about this pen that really works. Would I keep this, if I'm keeping this pen, would I put a different nib in it? Or is this nib why I like it too? Probably a little bit of both. It's a little masculine, this nib. The whole pen is sort of masculine. I know it has a ring top and it's a dame, but there's something about it that seems masculine. Now this nib is, on a desert island, if I had one pen, I would have this nib rather than this nib. There's just a little bit more range that I can, the thin is a little thinner than this one. And I can press down this nib. Oh God, I don't know. All the same, they're so different. They're all the same, they're so different. I was going to say, they're all the same in that they're all so great. And they're all so different. They share that in common. That's the thing that's, the thing that makes them alike is they're different. They're all different. No, this is really nice too. Dear, what can you do? Well, that's all I have to say. I'm going to get more coffee in me and actually do some work I need to do. So, bye.